Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times, a Prancing Pony podcast production. I'm the Man of the West. Let's keep week 89 going with another Word Nerd Wednesday. Now, last series, we used Word Nerd Wednesdays to cover the names and words that we've been encountering in the story of Tuor and Turambar Tuesdays. Now, this time around, I'll be taking a look, mostly, at words that we're running into as we continue our story of Tuor and His Coming to Gondolin on First Stage Fridays. And we're going to start with the name of Tuor's newly found companion, the mariner Voronwë. Now, we've not done an official Word Nerd Wednesday look into his name, but it has come up several times before, as we've talked about both elements in his name in relation to other people. The name is Quenya, of course. This is a Noldo, after all. And his name includes the elements bor, or boron, meaning endure, and then we, W-E, the ancient name suffix that is typically, though not universally, masculine. Now, that first element, boron, which is lenited to Voron in his name, came up when we've talked about Sindarin Borondir, steadfast man, the Gondorian horseman, the only one of 6, who survived the journey north to take word from Kirion to Eorl. It's the same root that's in Boromir's name as well. Now, as for the we suffix, think Finwë, Eonwë, Olwë, and so on. Now, before we wrapped last series, we heard Voronwë lament his return to Gondolin, saying, "Often have I vowed in the deeps of the sea that if ever I set foot on land again, I would dwell at rest far from the shadow in the north, or by the havens of Círdan, or maybe in the fair fields of Nantathran, where the spring is sweeter than heart's desire." So, let's take a look at Nantathran. Now, in the Silmarillion, it's translated in the text directly for us as Land of Willows, but it can also be Willow-vale. Tathran is the Sindarin adjective meaning of willow or of willows. The Sindarin noun is Tathar. Now, you might recognize its Quenya cognate better, Tasar, as in Nan-Tasarian, the Quenya version of Nan-Tathran. Anyway, the noun willow, Tathar in Sindarin, becomes Tathren to mean of willows. Nan is just the Sindarin word for vale, valley, or dale. Think Nan-Duhirion, Dimril Dale, Nan-Curunir, the Wizard's Vale, and so on. Nan or Nand typically means wide vale. The word Imlad is used for narrow, steep valleys like Imlad Morgul or Imladris. Now, there is another place that isn't named by Voronwë, but it is mentioned, and it's worth looking at. When Tuor expressed concern about whether they can get through the wilderness in the winter, Voronwë responded, "I am of the Noldor, and long must be the hunger and cold the winter that shall slay the kin of those who passed the grinding ice." As anyone who's read the Silmarillion remembers, the grinding ice is called the Helcaraxe. Now, this is another Quenya word. The two elements are Helca, meaning icy, ice-cold, and Caraxe, meaning jagged hedge of spikes, or row of spikes or teeth. Now, that first element, Helca, isn't something you're likely to have come across unless you're digging into the etymologies in your spare time. But Caraxe is interesting. It comes from the root karak, sharp fang, spike, or tooth. And maybe now you're thinking, that sounds familiar. Well, a Sindarin derivation from that same root is kark, meaning fang, as in Karkaroth, red maw. Now we move from words that we saw in the final reading of last series to words that we'll see in just a couple of days. First, we're going to see Voronwë leading Tuor westward of the steep slopes of Taras. Taras, it's not a complicated name. In Parma El Delamberon 22, we learned that the word dates back to the Quenya verbal system of 1948, glossed there simply as mount, with the plural Tarasi, meaning hills. Now, later, it would also be a Quenya word, meaning great towering building, tower, mount, or hill. But here, it's the Sindarin word meaning mount. The root is Tara, which we also see used on the field of Cormallen, where it is said of the hobbits, Alaita Tarienna, meaning bless or praise them to the height. And folks, that is it for today's Word Nerd Wednesday. Come back next week as we wander the wide, wild, wonderful world of words weekly on Wednesdays. Now, if there's a word you want to know more about, just let me know. Email barlaman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, a monthly hangout with me, bonus episode every week, and more. And then join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Third Age Thursday, as we start something new, having covered all the songs and poems in The Lord of the Rings. Podcast listeners, please subscribe to the show in your apps. For those on YouTube, subscribe to the channel to get all of the BPP productions as we bring the entire back catalog of the Prancing Pony podcast over here, along with my streaming show, The PPP Plays. And be sure you're following @Prancing Pony Pod on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.